It's funny how a single, sharp memory can define a lifetime of rivalry. For me, it wasn't some grand event, but the simple, cold reality of a report card. 6th grade. A crisp white envelope with my name, Sarah, and my twin brother Ethan's, names side by side. Our parents always did that, a shared moment of judgment that always felt more like a competition. I remember the feel of the paper, the way my heart hammered in my chest, a frantic beat echoing the dread I felt. I ripped it open, my eyes darting straight to the grades. My A's were there, neat and tidy, a perfect row, a familiar, satisfying sight. But then I saw his. Another perfect row of A's, plus an A+ in science. It was a minor thing, a silly detail, a single grade that meant nothing in the grand scheme of things. But in my mind, it wasn't. It was a crack in my flawless facade, a chink in my armor. It was the first time I felt that searing sting of not being the best, of being matched, even surpassed, by him. The air in our small suburban kitchen in Cincinnati seemed to grow thin, suffocating me with its unspoken verdict. That evening, I watched him at the dinner table, a simple, satisfied smile on his face as he talked with our dad about the science project, a model of the solar system he'd built himself. He didn't notice me, didn't see the way my jaw was tight, the jealousy a bitter taste on my tongue. I remember thinking, with a clarity that still chills me, "You'll never beat me, Ethan. Not ever again." From that day forward, the small, innocent rivalry we had as kids twisted into something ugly and consuming. It wasn't about being better than him anymore. It was about making sure he couldn't be better than me. Every success he had, no matter how small, was a personal insult, a challenge I felt compelled to meet and overcome. I started finding ways to subtly sabotage him, to undermine his achievements. A misplaced homework assignment here, a whispered rumor there. It all started with that report card, a piece of paper that showed me he was capable of winning. I couldn't allow that. I had to ensure I was the one who always stood on top. If you're enjoying this story, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel for the next chapter. High school brought new arenas for our twisted competition. Ethan, with his easy charm and broad shoulders, excelled in football. The roar of the Friday night crowd in our town of Dayton, Ohio, was his anthem, his natural athleticism shining on the field. He was the golden boy, popular and well-liked, the kind of person who seemed to draw people in effortlessly, a stark contrast to my own carefully curated circle of academic peers. My focus was academics, the one area I still held a clear advantage. But his popularity irked me. It felt like he was effortlessly collecting accolades, while I had to strive and strategize for every bit of recognition. One particular game, the championship no less, solidified my resentment. He scored the winning touchdown in the final seconds, a dramatic, triumphant play that sent the crowd into a frenzy. The stadium lights seemed to converge on him alone as the crowd chanted his name. I stood on the sidelines with our parents, forcing a smile as they beamed with pride. Inside, a cold fury simmered. That night, at the celebratory dinner, I made sure to casually mention a mistake he'd made during practice that week, subtly diminishing his achievement. "Remember that pass you fumbled on Tuesday, Ethan?" I asked, a seemingly innocent question that carried a hidden barb. He just laughed it off, oblivious to the venom in my words. His nonchalance only fueled my resentment. I started spreading rumors among his teammates, little seeds of doubt about his leadership, his commitment. Nothing blatant, just enough to maybe, just maybe, cost him the captaincy next year. It was a small victory. But in my warped mind, every step down he took was a step up for me. College was supposed to be a fresh start, a chance to forge separate identities. We chose different universities, miles apart. Me at a prestigious East Coast school, him at a state university in the Midwest. For a while, there was a fragile peace. I focused on my studies, thrived in the competitive academic environment, convinced I was finally winning. He continued with football, enjoying the camaraderie and the thrill of the game. But the distance didn't erase the underlying tension. His successes still echoed in my mind, amplified by the proud phone calls from our parents. Then came the news. Ethan had met someone, a girl named Emily. From the pictures they sent, she was beautiful, with a warm, genuine smile. She seemed to be his perfect match. A new wave of jealousy washed over me, stronger than before. It wasn't just about achievements anymore. It was about connection, about the ease with which he seemed to build relationships and find happiness. I started subtly probing for information during our occasional phone calls, feigning interest in his life. I learned about their shared dreams, their plans to travel to Europe, their talks of a future together. A dark seed took root in my heart. I couldn't bear the thought of him having this perfect life, this perfect partner, this perfect love. It felt like another way he was winning, effortlessly surpassing me in the realm of happiness and human connection. I would not allow it. I couldn't stand by and watch him build a life of genuine joy while I was constantly fighting to stay on top. The competition had to continue, even from a distance. My carefully crafted lies started subtly, almost innocently. During a visit home, I made a seemingly offhand comment to Emily about Ethan's commitment issues in the past, framing it as concern from a loving sister. I'd recount a half-remembered high school crush he'd had, embellishing the story to make him sound less than trustworthy. Later, during a phone call with Ethan, I mentioned seeing Emily having coffee with a male coworker, painting it as a secretive and overly intimate encounter. "You know, Emily seemed to be having a great time with that guy from her office," I'd say, my voice dripping with false innocence. Individually, these were small seeds of doubt, easily dismissed. But I watered them consistently, carefully crafting scenarios and insinuations. I played on their insecurities, their long-distance relationship vulnerabilities, the natural anxieties that come with loving someone from afar. My goal wasn't to cause a dramatic explosion, but a slow, corrosive erosion of trust. It worked. I noticed subtle shifts in their interactions during video calls. A flicker of doubt in Emily's eyes, a hint of defensiveness in Ethan's voice. I felt a perverse sense of satisfaction. Their happiness, once a source of irritation, was now a fragile thing, and I held the power to shatter it. It was a cruel game, but in my obsession with never letting him beat me, empathy had become a distant memory. I was so fixated on his downfall that I failed to see the beautiful, thriving life I was destroying. If you're following this story, please consider subscribing to the channel for the next installment. After graduation, Ethan landed a great job in Chicago, a coveted position in his field of engineering. The company was well known, and the role promised a clear path to success. Our parents were ecstatic. Another proud milestone announced with a flood of celebratory texts and a family group chat that I couldn't bear to look at. While I offered a perfunctory congratulations, inside, the familiar green-eyed monster reared its ugly head. He was moving forward, building a successful career, while I was still navigating the early stages of mine. The envy was a physical ache in my chest, a constant pressure that made it hard to breathe. My subtle jabs and insinuations continued, now targeting his professional life. I'd casually mention to our parents, within his earshot, rumors I'd heard about company layoffs, hinting at Ethan's supposed lack of experience making him vulnerable. I even went as far as to create a burner email account and anonymously contact his boss, suggesting Ethan had taken credit for a colleague's project, carefully wording it to sound like a concerned insider. The aim wasn't to get him fired, not yet, but to sow seeds of doubt, to create an undercurrent of unease around his professional success. I wanted him to feel the same insecurity I constantly battled, the fear of not being good enough. I wanted him to understand that even when things seemed perfect, they could be ripped away. The strain on Ethan and Emily's relationship became increasingly evident. Their phone calls grew shorter, their video chats less frequent, the forced smiles on their faces a stark contrast to the happy couple I'd seen in photos. Emily started confiding in me more frequently, venting her frustrations about Ethan's emotional distance. Unknowingly, she was playing right into my hands. She'd mention arguments, misunderstandings, a growing distance between them. I offered a sympathetic ear and carefully crafted advice, always subtly reinforcing her doubts about Ethan. I'd nod and say, "Maybe he's just not ready for a serious commitment, you know." I never outright lied, but I twisted truths, highlighted his flaws, and painted a picture of incompatibility. My web of deceit was becoming intricate, each thread carefully placed to weaken their bond. Meanwhile, Ethan seemed increasingly stressed, both at work and in his personal life. He became withdrawn, less communicative. Our parents noticed, expressing concern. I played the role of the supportive sister, feigning worry while secretly relishing the impact of my actions. The vibrant, happy brother I once knew was slowly fading, replaced by someone burdened and uncertain. He was losing his footing, and I was the one who had pulled the rug out from under him. The news of Ethan and Emily's breakup reached me through a tearful phone call from Emily. The sound of her sobs filled my ear, but all I felt was a cold, quiet sense of triumph. She was heartbroken, confused, and blamed herself, unaware of my manipulations. I offered hollow words of comfort, inwardly celebrating my victory. It was a devastating blow to Ethan, one from which he seemed to struggle to recover. The happy future he had planned, the life he was so eagerly building, had been torn apart. He became more isolated, his once bright outlook dimmed. His work performance suffered, his attention to detail slipping under the weight of his emotional distress. The subtle whispers I had planted earlier began to take root, and he faced scrutiny from his superiors. His confidence, already shaken by the loss of Emily, completely evaporated. Watching him unravel was a strange mix of satisfaction and a growing unease. I had achieved what I set out to do. He was no longer beating me in life. But the hollowness of my triumph was starting to become apparent. His pain, though I had orchestrated it, felt heavier than I had anticipated. The victory felt empty, a bitter prize for a cruel game I had won. If you're invested in Sarah and Ethan's story, please subscribe to the channel to see what happens next. Ethan lost his job. The news hit our family like a punch to the gut. The phone call from our dad was filled with a mix of anger and deep sadness. Our parents were worried sick, his career aspirations seemingly shattered. He moved back home to the quiet, familiar streets of our childhood, a shadow of his former self. The once confident and popular Ethan was now withdrawn and listless. He spent his days on the couch, staring blankly at the television, lost in a fog of despair. I watched him navigate this new reality, the shame and disappointment palpable in his every move. It was what I had wanted, wasn't it? For him to stumble, to fall. But seeing him like this, broken and defeated, brought me no real joy. The constant comparison that had fueled my actions for so long felt strangely irrelevant now. He wasn't a rival anymore. He was simply a wounded human being. Yet the momentum of my deceit kept me trapped. I couldn't confess, couldn't reveal the extent of my manipulations. The fallout would be catastrophic. So, I continued the charade of the concerned sister, offering superficial support while the guilt gnawed at me. Every time I saw the look of despair in his eyes, a piece of my own soul felt like it was crumbling. The cold, hard wall I had built around my heart was beginning to crack. Ethan's mental health deteriorated. The loss of his job, compounded by the heartbreak of his broken engagement and the feeling that he was a failure, took a heavy toll. He became increasingly withdrawn, plagued by anxiety and a deep sense of worthlessness. Our parents tried their best to support him, suggesting therapy and offering to help him look for new work, but he seemed lost in a fog of despair, unable to see a way out. I witnessed his struggles firsthand, the dark circles under his eyes, the vacant stare, the way he flinched at the sound of the phone ringing. A cold dread began to creep into my heart. My actions, initially fueled by petty jealousy, had spiraled into something far more destructive than I had ever intended. The thought that I was responsible for his suffering became a constant, unwelcome companion. Sleep offered no escape, haunted by the ghost of the vibrant brother I had systematically dismantled. The weight of my lies was becoming unbearable, a suffocating burden that threatened to crush me. I would see him staring out the window at the kids playing outside, a look of profound loss on his face, and I would feel a sharp, agonizing pang of regret. The victory I had envisioned was now a living nightmare, and I was the architect of it all. The consequences of my actions finally crashed down upon me. Emily, through a mutual friend who had worked with Ethan, uncovered inconsistencies in the stories I had told both of them. My elaborate web of deceit, once so strong, began to unravel with a single tug. The friend, realizing the extent of my manipulation, confronted me. The truth, stark and ugly, was laid bare. The fallout was immediate and devastating. Emily was furious, her heartbreak compounded by the realization of my betrayal. The pain in her voice was a physical blow. More importantly, our parents learned the truth. The disappointment in their eyes, the silent judgment, was a deeper wound than any anger they could have expressed. Ethan, fragile and vulnerable, was finally told the extent of my lies. He didn't yell or scream. He just looked at me, and the hurt in his eyes, the quiet devastation, was the ultimate punishment. I had won, hadn't I? I had ensured he could never beat me. But in doing so, I had destroyed him. His chance at happiness, our family, and ultimately myself. The victory I had so desperately craved was nothing but ashes in my mouth. A bitter reminder of the destructive power of envy. Thank you for watching this story. If you found it compelling, please subscribe to the channel for more narratives.